So in the attempt you're watching, I have rebuilt the roller bearings, caps, and springs. Now in this attempt, I have added a tougher spring in an attempt to force the roller bearings harder onto the surface of the sprocket. In this final attempt, I removed the rotor and surfaced the sprocket to try to remove imperfections. All done with these carbs. Let's move these away. Alright, so first things first, let's take a look at this. So this is the rotor and starter clutch assembly that comes on a stock Cb500T, comes on a 450 and a few other bikes from 1975. And it's this 3 roller bearing type. And they're fixed to the rotor, and then these ears here, each of these ears serve as a sort of a set point so that they won't travel. You know, it helps keep them sort of centered. And I'm not sure, there's also this plate here. I'm not sure if that matters or not for what, you know, what it does for the assembly, but important to note that it exists. Yeah. So I had an extra one of these, and I tried to get this one to work, because I bought this as a second one when I tore up my other one, and I wanted to, you know, basically get the stock one running, and I tried everything I could to get the stock one running. I got a rebuild kit from Common Motor and replaced each of the roller bearings. I replaced the caps and the springs. It's still stripped, and I'll link that clip here. And then I did tougher springs in here to push the clutch wheels out more. I just went and got a tougher rated spring. That sort of helped, but did not fix the issue. And I can, you know, when I have it on the sprocket, when the sprocket is on the shaft and I put this on, I can't turn it over by hand to turn the engine. I can't break it loose from the clutch by hand, but the second that I engage the starter, it strips, immediately gets loose. I tried machining this surface to get out any imperfections. I sanded these bearings, you know, just to make sure that they were completely smooth and dry, free from grease and chemicals. Nothing worked. And then I had an idea to change this to a new style Sprag, and had to go through the effort of, I mean, it's not really an effort, it's pretty easy, but I measured the outer, you know, this diameter here for the sprocket, found a Sprag that would fit that, and then also had to find a Sprag that would line up with the bosses, these bosses, so that I could tap them. But in order to tap them, you have to get everything really centered. And another aspect of it is this, you know, so I ended up shaving these off, these ears, so that this would mate completely smooth to this lower surface here without the ears interfering, right? But the problem is that once you do that, you sort of lose the function that those ears had, which centers this on this. So in order to center it, the machinist countersunk these bolts all the way in and machined the sides of the bolts themselves so that it was a very, very tight fit, in order to provide sort of centering pegs. Yeah, and so now we'll just do a test fit. This is the sprocket. It goes in like this. Perfect fit. Can't break it by hand. You know, looks pretty good. And I'll get my calipers and measure this, but damned if those aren't the same exact height. The question becomes, is there anything at all that can cause interference, or, you know, really the only thing left to do is to test this. So I'm going to mount everything on the bike, hook up the battery, and turn the key and see what happens. So I'll be right back, and while we're on the bike. Okay, I've got the starter sprockets ready to throw on, so I'll just go ahead and line these up, get the splines on the starter aligned, and now I'll move this keeper out of the way. All right. Tighten that down. Doesn't have to be super tight. All right, and make sure that my drift is in there. It's good. And these have a direction. So if you get it flush with the starter sprocket and just turn it the correct direction, it'll just mount right on there. That just makes it a little easier so you're not fighting it. Just like that. So these are measurements that I was taking, just some random pics of the things I was measuring. I also had my digital calipers and made like a engineering drawing of the part and sourced the Yamaha ATV Sprag, and I'll list the part number in the description. These are pictures of the rotor before and after. So here's after they've been machined and tapped. Here's assembled. Here's a side profile. Overall, I'm very, very happy.